KiwiRail's journeys through scenic New Zealand may seem peaceful.
Look at that. This is incredible.
But throughout this magnificent landscape, trouble lies beneath.
Who would run a railway in a country like New Zealand?
Here, trains cross treacherous fault lines.
So you imagine some of this coming down and hitting a train.
On tracks that snake past active volcanoes.
To be honest, as a country, New Zealand's really vulnerable.
And over dizzying heights. Here, nature isn't just decoration, it's positively dangerous.
I'm hopping on board for 2 epic journeys to discover what it takes to keep these trains rolling, even when potential disaster lurks around every corner.
New Zealand. Stunning mountains, plunging ravines, and spectacular coastlines. It's a never-ending paradise for nature lovers. And there's no better way to see the sights than by rail.
I mean, look at this. Me and the other passengers are being treated as some supreme eye candy.
I'm going on 2 incredible train journeys. I'll be climbing aboard the Alpine, which brings me from Christchurch to Greymouth, across New Zealand's South Island. First, though, I'm headed to Auckland on the North Island.
I'll take a trip on KiwiRail's Northern Explorer line, a trip through epic landscapes that have been the backdrop for major movies and the most devastating rail disaster in New Zealand's history.
Our journey begins at Auckland's Strand Station,
You'll see paradise today. Thank you.
where the Northern Explorer's crew prepares the train for departure.
Locomotive engineer 201 from train manager 201.
David Wild is one of 2 train managers on my journey.
It's my role to ensure that the train is safe. We take care of all the operational stuff, the doors, the stops, the security of the train. And I've got a good team with me helping take care of the hospitality side, the service.
Hello, lovelies. We're travelling today? Who's travelling today?
David's colleague is Simone Dixon. She's been with KiwiRail for 27 years.
All day. You got babies? Okay.
Simone?
Hi.
Hey.
How you doing, Tim? Good
great.
to see you.
So great to meet you.
Lovely to have you with us.
So we're about to get rolling.
Yes, we sure are. It's going to be a busy day today.
The Northern Explorer runs 6 days a week and carries over 40,000 passengers a year. Simone and David are taking care of 200 people on this 11.5-hour odyssey.
It's going to be smooth, and it's going to be a journey everyone will never forget. Hello, how are you?
It's 7:41, we'll be leaving in 4 minutes' time. Schedules are particularly important for this train. We've got a lot of suburban traffic in the area, so we've only got a small window to leave this station. If we get caught behind suburban trains, there could be significant delays for our passengers, so it's really important we get everyone on board and away on time.
Auckland's busy rail network carries passenger, freight, and suburban commuter trains. During peak service, there's a train every 30 seconds, coming from or going into the center of New Zealand's largest city.
Northern Explorer control receiving, over.
During rush hour, commuter trains have priority, as they each carry up to 900 passengers. So the sightseers aboard the Northern Explorer have to be patient and wait for their window.
Anything could happen. Well, we're waiting. You know, that's our job. Be ready for the unexpected.
Okay, we're in the final seconds here. The train is loaded with passengers. I've got to get on, and I can't wait to explore the North Island. I'm excited.
Locomotive engineer 201 from train manager 201.
Loco engineer 201 receiving train manager, over.
Yeah, Bernie, we're all set here. You have the right to proceed. Guard aboard right away, thank you.
And we're off on a spectacular train trip across some of the most rugged and beautiful landscapes in the world.
Oh, and folks, just grab your boarding passes, thanks. Thank you. Cheers. I'll grab the big pass.
On New Zealand's North Island, our 680-kilometer excursion begins in Auckland. The train travels through farmland and king country before climbing into the Central Plateau. It passes Tongariro National Park, several volcanoes, including Mount Ruapehu, then over deep gorges and along the Kapiti coast, onto the capital city of Wellington.
So we've just left Auckland now. We've got another 11.5-hour day ahead of us today. We're hoping for good weather, good pictures for the tourists.
For lengthy trips like this one, KiwiRail assigns several locomotive engineers to drive the train in rotating shifts.
Just over 43 years I've been working on rail.
Bernie Hanare is in the cab for the first leg of this journey. Over his long career, he's driven many types of locomotives.
In New Zealand, we have lower horsepower locos and we have higher horsepower ones. So this is about a mid-range loco. And as such, they can do both passenger and freight work quite comfortably.
Today, the Northern Explorer is pulled by a 2,400 horsepower DFT class locomotive. At 16.7 meters long, 3.8 meters high, and 2.7 meters wide, this turbocharged diesel-electric locomotive can travel to a top speed of 113 kilometers per hour.
Up in this area, most of the curves are a fairly high speed. But when you get down into the middle of the country, curve speeds are a lot lower. And they have more hills to contend with, tunnels, viaducts, and so forth.
We've barely reached the city's outskirts, and there's already a delay.
So, Simone, we're just a few minutes out of Auckland, and I noticed that the train had stopped. What was going on there?
Auckland's a really busy place. It's trains running every 5 minutes here.
So it can be difficult to get out of sometimes.
Absolutely. A locomotive engineer will have to make up for that lost running of time.
The suburban area being the suburban area with a lot of people, you quite often get trespassers walking along the track. So, yes, you have to be extra vigilant.
Trespassers are just one of the many challenges KiwiRail's engineers face along New Zealand's railways. 650 kilometers down the track, just outside our final destination of Wellington, crews are upgrading the rail bed so it's ready to receive the Northern Explorer.
What they're doing is replacing all the old sleepers, then they just put in new concrete sleepers.
Since the mid-2000s, KiwiRail has spent tens of millions of dollars updating its track network. More than 4 million wooden ties, also known as sleepers, are being replaced with new concrete ones that last longer, require less maintenance, and form a more stable track bed.
Every time the inspectors check them, they've got to be a certain grade. They're at a point where they're pretty much like soft and they're not safe for the train, pretty much potential for derailment. So now they're at a point where we've actually got to change them out.
Moving the rails is not an option. So before the new sleepers can be installed, the ballast stones that form the track bed must be loosened. It's intense, time-consuming work.
When the trains aren't running, you try and maximise that time by getting as much as you can. So we kind of aim, I set a goal where you're roughly about, say, 20 sleepers a day.
Back aboard the Northern Explorer, we roll through farmland and the beautiful Waikato region.
Simone, what area are we coming up on now?
We're about a few minutes out of Hamilton. Hamilton is also the capital of the Waikato region. Good morning, Uncle Ian.
Good morning.
Top of the morning to you, sir.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. Don't you look smart as always?
Modesty prevents me from disagreeing with you.
Oh, so lovely to see you.
Yeah.
This is Ian, he's the man in charge of the Hamilton station, ensuring that our train departs on time.
We shall get rid of the train very shortly.
The lands that lie beyond Hamilton Station are on the bucket list of every serious fantasy literature fan. If the next leg of our journey looks like something out of The Lord of the Rings, that's because it is.
Do a lot of people come to check out this part of the line because of Hobbiton?
Absolutely. A lot of people come to New Zealand because of Hobbiton, you know, because they want to embrace and feel the set of The Lord of the Rings, you know.
Hobbiton is the sprawling set of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit movies.
We take you there. We give you an experience of the mountains and the landscapes, so you can touch it.
And so are you big fans of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit?
I am, yeah.
Lance definitely is.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Lance and Eleanor are tourists from Australia. They boarded the train in Hamilton after a long-awaited visit to Hobbiton.
And being fans of the films when you were there, did it feel awesome?
Yeah, especially when you were standing up near Bag End and looking over the whole, like the Shire itself.
Wow.
It was amazing.
It's cool to be in Middle Earth, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
definitely.
Middle-earth is the fictional setting of The Lord of the Rings, but no special effects are necessary to showcase the 2 volcanoes featured in the films. Along New Zealand's rail lines, though, there's nothing imaginary about the dangers these volcanoes pose.
We think this is the remains of carriage 6, and 151 lives were lost on the evening.
I'm on board the Northern Explorer, a train journey across New Zealand's magnificent North Island.
We're in Otira, so we have 2 people to get off and also 9 people to pick up. Hello, folks, how are we? Jump on just up here, thanks, guys. So we're in carriage B, folks, 16A, 15A, and also 15B.
Leaving Otira, we set off for the rugged countryside of the island's central plateau. KiwiRail wages a running battle with this land's many natural challenges, especially where it threatens safety along the tracks. 400 kilometers farther south, maintenance crews have closed the line near Wellington.
It's a passenger route. See how close it is? That's where our trains run.
The crew isn't here for routine repairs. They've come to prevent a catastrophe.
We're here because we've had a number of slips over the past few weeks, especially during the heavy rain.
Heavy rainfall can trigger mudslides or slips, plunging deadly debris onto the tracks.
We're on blind spots here, so a rock fall come down, it could potentially derail a train.
Ensure safe access to the work site. Do not stand on the railhead, especially if it starts to rain today or start getting slippery. Just stay away from it.
The crew divides to conquer. One half works with diggers to remove debris from the track, while the other heads up the cliff to clear loose rock that could fall onto a train.
It's very much manual labour getting up there and getting in behind the rock and then literally prizing it off the cliff face, make it safe.
So you imagine some of this coming down and hitting the train. There's a lot of loose rubble up there and we don't know how far it's going to go back. We just got to keep going and going. Nice one, Josh.
Maintenance like this prevents landslides that could block the tracks, or worse, hit a passing train.
This will be our 4th time this year on this line, just going back and forward, just scaling and just generally trimming up what we're doing now.
It's this constant, grueling work that keeps the tracks open for the Northern Explorer. Back on the train, we begin to climb into the central plateau.
So we're now entering one of the most famous and impressive points on this journey. Having to deal with a steep slope that would have been impossible for a train to overcome, the engineers who built this rail line faced the dilemma. Either divert the train 20 kilometers away or figure out a way to punch through the rock and crisscross the area with tunnels and viaducts. Well, they chose the latter, and the result is the Raurimu Spiral. And that's what we're hitting right now.
In 1898, engineer Robert Holmes designed a complex and ingenious rail spiral to overcome a sharp rise in the terrain between the Raurimu and National Park stations. For 2.5 years, workers cut through a jumble of dense bush, gullies, mountain, and hills to build the innovative rail structure. Trains go round a 180-degree bend in a horseshoe curve and climb above the track they just traveled. They ride over 2 sharp bends, through 2 tunnels, then complete a full circle before continuing south.
In a direct line, Raurimu is 5.5 kilometres from National Park, although we actually travel 11 kilometres of track to get there. The line rise is 214 metres, and the spiral effectively doubles the travelling distance, but halves the rate of ascent to 150.
After After a dizzying trip up the spiral, engineer Bernie Hanare's shift comes to an end. He's been in the cab since sunrise, but that doesn't bother this KiwiRail veteran.
Still enjoying the job after all that time? The day I don't want to come to work, I'll give it away.
So this is National Park Station, and we're literally getting people on and off, and the locomotive engineers are changing over. We have very tight windows, and also people have connections connecting flights, so we try and get everyone there on time.
As the journey continues, we're treated to the panoramic beauty of Tongariro National Park. Our next engineer, Grant Allen, never tires of the view.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've got the best job in New Zealand. It's a special trip because the landscape changes so much. And I've only been here 44 years, and it's gone very fast, and it's been very enjoyable, and I'd do it all again if I had the chance.
Simone, this is an amazing vantage point, and are we on a viaduct right now?
Oh, we sure are. This is the Makatote Viaduct. This is like one of our prime spots.
This is amazing. It is quite the drop down there.
Sure is.
Wow.
It's no wonder the North Island main trunk line is described as an engineering miracle. It took 35 years to build hundreds of bridges, tunnels, and viaducts across ravine-scarred landscape. The effort was well worth it because the rail line brought economic investment to remote areas of the island.
So we're coming up on another viaduct?
Yeah, this is the Hapua Whenua Viaduct. It's very impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, it's got the wow factor all day.
Yeah.
This will stay in your memory.
I can see it coming up.
Yeah.
Completed in 1987, the new Hapua Whenua rail bridge is a stunning concrete and curved steel lattice viaduct that spans over 400 meters. But its sleek design is more than architectural eye candy. The viaduct structure is built to withstand an earthquake.
And we are on it. I can see the length even from here. It's amazing. Wow. They're feats of engineering, really.
Absolutely.
Now, Simone, that massive mountain behind us, that's actually one of the big volcanoes in the area, isn't it?
It sure is. It's the largest in New Zealand. It's called Mount Ruapehu.
Ruapehu.
Yes.
Like any region with active volcanoes, New Zealand has seen its share of earthquakes and volcanic activity. And as we pull into Ohakune Station, locomotive engineers are always reminded of their destructive power.
This is the scene of the Tangiwai disaster, Christmas Eve 1953.
Snow melted by a volcano can create destructive mud flows called lahars. Volcanologists Brad Scott and Harry Keyes study lahars in the hope of predicting them.
Obviously, I've heard of flash floods and mudslides, but what is it? What makes it so devastating?
A lahar starts out as a normal water flood high in the volcano, but as it comes down off the volcano, it picks up gravels and sands and boulders. It bulks up, it becomes denser, and it's the density and the bulkness of it that does all the damage. Well, on Christmas Eve in 1953, a volcanic flood came down off the volcano, and that lahar came down this river valley and it took out the bridge.
But the engine came off, went right across the river, smashed into the pier. Some were left teetering. There was one still teetering, and that fell in later.
Wow. The piles for the bridge were actually moved in the river and shifted away from under the bridge, and that takes a lot of energy.
And how many people died in this accident?
There was 240 plus people on the train, and 151 lives were lost on the evening.
In 2007, another powerful lahar roared down the river valley, straight toward the rail bridge.
There's always a question in some of our minds, would this bridge survive it?
I'm on the home stretch of an amazing rail journey across New Zealand's North Island. The train has stopped at Ohakune Station.
And I'm going to visit Tangiwai. That's the site of the worst railway disaster in New Zealand's history.
It's here that I'm finding out how volcanic floods called lahars continue to threaten rail travel.
There's like a tsunami with logs in it coming down. Yeah.
In 1953, 151 people were killed when a lahar smashed into a rail bridge, causing it to collapse into the river.
Northern Explorer control receiving, over.
Yeah, Roger control, 200 on 6 lead funds.
At National Train Control in Wellington, 34 controllers direct all of New Zealand's railway traffic. They receive alerts in the event of a lahar or other natural disaster.
In the North Island, Mount Rupehu, we have a lahar risk. There's a crater lake bounded by ice and snow.
Carl Mills is the operations manager at National Train Control.
Every couple of decades, that will melt or break, and it sends a significant amount of water out of the volcano lame, spilling down the side of a mountain.
As soon as a train controller receives alerts, they'll warn drivers of any oncoming lahars.
We now have monitoring systems along that riverbed upstream of the railway. There are seismic sensors up on the mountain that are detecting movement and hooked into a paging system, and alarms if that raises above a certain level or raises rapidly.
In 2007, a lahar rushed down the valley and headed straight toward the rail bridge.
We were watching a video stream, and in literally 1 second it went from flat water to probably an increase of 3 or 4 meters of bow wave.
The monitoring system instantly warned the controllers at KiwiRail. Trains were safely stopped long before they reached the bridge.
We can get out of the way. We can get people out of the way, stop the trains. So the big lesson of Tangiwai is that no one needs to die anymore.
Right.
Back on board the Northern Explorer, passengers are safe, and the staff is ready to handle anything New Zealand's environment might throw at them.
Well, I always feel safer on trains than I do in a car.
Since there's no traffic here to interfere with our journey, there's also nothing to block the incredible views.
Do you feel proud of this train?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah. Proud of this train, proud of this company, and of course proud of what's outside that window.
Right.
Yeah.
You notice a lot of the places along the route, the different sites and the words are Maori words.
Absolutely. 99% of our names in the North Island are Māori.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you Maori?
I am indeed, yes.
Okay.
From the Waikato. Our tribe is Tainui, one of the biggest tribes here in New Zealand.
Okay. So people come from all over to see the different spots and sites on this route, but the words themselves mean a lot to you, I guess.
They do. A lot of the place names in New Zealand, they have a lot of significant meaning, and they would come from the chiefs that govern the areas. Yeah, so there's a lot of history in regards to place names.
Thanks,
yeah.
Emma.
You're welcome.
Cruising through the lush farmland that leads toward Wellington, it's clear that pride is also a feeling shared by Simone's colleague, David.
Best part of the job is meeting people from all over the world. Everyone's got their own stories, everyone's got their own backgrounds. Meeting different people, hearing everybody's tales of adventure, yeah.
The spectacular scenery of the North Island has set the bar high for New Zealand sightseeing. As the Northern Explorer pulls into the capital city of Wellington, I can't help but wonder how my next trip can top it.
It's been an awesome journey so far, and it's not over yet.
I'm crossing over to the South Island, where I'll be boarding the Alpine. This train carries passengers from Christchurch to Greymouth. Before any trains can depart, crucial maintenance is performed at Middleton Yard in Christchurch.
There's a no finger zone, which is between the brake shoe and the wheel. So we'll put a crowbar in that and wedge back the caliper.
New Zealand is rocked by as many as 15,000 earthquakes a year. The vast majority don't have a human impact, but those that do can be devastating. The South Island has been hit by a dozen big quakes of magnitude 6 or higher over the last decade. Any emergency calls for good brakes, and that's where the inspection starts.
If these aren't working 100%, then it's going to be a big problem for our customers. It's going to be a big problem for the engine driver.
KiwiRail's trains rely on the power of compressed air to operate their brakes. A compressor fills air in the locomotive's tank. Pipes containing compressed air run the length of the train, and they're connected to each braked bogie. Lowering the air pressure in the pipes activates the brakes, while increasing it releases them.
So this brake's in pretty poor condition here. It's split from the inside. Keeping my fingers out of the way, remove. If you compare it to a brand new brake block, you can see there's a huge chunk of it missing from this side. If the brakes were to fail on this locomotive, the results of that could be catastrophic.
We are both on board your rear vehicle and you're right to proceed to the platform.
Roger, understood. All clear.
All clear, keep it coming.
Locomotive engineer Pete Kellett rolls the Transalpine alongside the platform for passenger boarding.
Hey, Pete.
Good.
Hey, Teddy, how you doing, man?
Nice to meet you.
Good. I'm really excited to get rolling. We're leaving in a few minutes, right?
Yeah, about 15 minutes.
We're about to begin our journey aboard the Transalpine through this stunning but dangerously volatile landscape.
Are earthquakes always in the back of your mind? Is it always something you have to think about?
Every day we cross that Alpine fault,
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, I've got a whole lot of people right now. If the fault ruptured, we're going to fall off the tracks.
I'm in Christchurch, New Zealand, and minutes away from boarding the Transalpine, a train that will take me through some of the world's most beautiful but unstable landscapes.
First aid kit. Yep. Defib. Nice one. There is a seriousness to our job. You come to New Zealand because it's rugged, it's beautiful, but it comes with its costs. It's one of the most earthquake-prone countries in the world.
KiwiRail service manager Dion McNaddy oversees the train's staff, passenger safety, and any disruptions on the line.
My kids, I laugh, they think I just make coffee for a living, talk on a microphone, but there's a lot more goes on. Morning, guys. You all right? Lovely.
Just minutes from departure, and it looks like I'm the last of today's 175 passengers to climb aboard the train.
Everything all set? Are we ready to go?
No, it should be a good day. The sun's about to come out, and yeah, we'll get to it.
Well, I'm really, really excited. Thanks, man. It's good to know you're up there handling everything. I'm going to jump on.
All right.
Thanks.
See you later.
803, guard driver receiving.
And we're off on the trip of a lifetime. The Transalpine is a 223-kilometer train journey across New Zealand's South Island. It starts in Christchurch, then travels through the Canterbury Plains into the Southern Alps to stop at Arthur's Pass. The train journeys through rainforest, over the Alpine fault line, and on to its final destination, the city of Greymouth.
Today we're travelling, the first part when we leave Christchurch, we travel on the main south line to the start of the Midland line. Then we'll turn right and head up towards the mountains. It's a very beautiful part of the country.
The Transalpine treats passengers to a breathtaking 5-hour ride across some of the world's most dramatic landscapes. And to reach this remote and gorgeous land by rail is a major challenge.
We often say in the rail, who would run a railway in a country like New Zealand? There's so many factors. You get a huge downpour, you just get a bit of rock comes down, line's closed. We have snow, closes the line, fires, floods, earthquakes, snow. Just waiting for the locust plague, we've had everything.
So we've just rolled out of Christchurch. We're just a short ways into our journey, and we're about to get into some really, really stunning scenery. But what you can't see is that underground potential for earthquakes is massive.
In recent years, New Zealand has experienced devastating seismic activity, and scientists believe another powerful quake could strike the region again.
They hit so quickly that the derailment's our biggest problem. So if we fall off the tracks, we just have to set up a triage. We've got emergency kits, defibrillators, plenty of food. Basically, we just have to self-contain until the rescuers come for us.
In 2016, a colossal earthquake shattered a different rail line near the remote coastal town of Kaikoura, 200 kilometers north of Christchurch. Rail lines were ripped from their beds and landslides roared down the mountains. Access to Kaikoura was completely cut off. The destruction showed everyone at KiwiRail what could happen just as easily along the Transalpine route.
This here is the Clarence River Bridge, which had significant damage to it. It's known as Bridge 120.
Clark Butcher is the projects manager for the KiwiRail corridor.
And we can see the huge uplift along the fault line.
He's working on the reconstruction of a freight route that connects Kaikoura to the rest of the South Island. It's costing KiwiRail nearly $90 million.
See, all of this white rock used to be submerged and was pushed up out of the water by the force of the fault fracture.
This is the largest rebuild project in New Zealand's history.
It was a monstrous earthquake. It just shook the mountains, and everything that was loose that was about to fall came down.
Doug Dold has been working on the reconstruction effort for 6 months.
We've got an intensive bridge building operation, we've got rail being formed, and we've got the new road seawall on our seaward side, all happening in an area that we still consider potentially risky. So we don't like to hang around here too much.
Aftershocks are a risk for weeks or even months near the epicenter of a quake. So this area is a dangerous work environment.
These guys are slewing the track back in place now that we've got it down to level with the tunnel that's been lowered. They're going to fish plate it to the other rail so that we can get the train past. We're making pretty good progress. We had about 130 kilometres of track out. We're currently down to 16, and within the next week or so we should be down to about 10.
Scientists cannot predict exactly when and where an earthquake will hit. Still, rebuild projects like this one help KiwiRail hone their communication systems to guide drivers through a quake's aftermath.
Our entire rail network has a fixed radio system, so we can talk to any train at any time, at any location, including in tunnels.
During an earthquake, seismic sensors emit ground acceleration readings, and that data is immediately transmitted to National Train Control in Wellington.
So we can see if an earthquake 100 kilometres away has had a likely effect on a railway line at a particular location.
Controllers instruct locomotive drivers within a 150-kilometre radius of a quake to come to a stop.
Roger, 158.
And we'll start to work with our engineers to assess the impact, inspect the tracks and get traffic running again.
As if earthquakes aren't enough, during the summer months, the employees of KiwiRail also have to contend with wildfires. Those can completely destroy bridges and blaze along the tracks.
They believe this is where it could have started, down under this one. Driver 803, receiving Peter.
803 approaching Springfield operating instruction to Arthur's Pass.
I'm on the Alpine, a spectacular train ride across New Zealand's South Island. We're an hour and a half into our journey and approaching the Southern Alps, 70 kilometers west of Christchurch.
So rolling along with these mountains and this incredible scenery all around us, it's easy to understand why this is known as one of the best rail journeys in the world.
So everyone heading into the mountains, some say the next part of the journey.
One of the most photographed, talked about parts of the Transalpine journey.
In tunnels, bridges, viaducts, some stunning views. Wrap up warm, head out to the viewing platform at the front of the train.
So Dion, we're getting into some really epic scenery here. We've got the river below, massive mountains. What's this area called?
So this is around the staircase viaduct area.
Okay.
Very rugged. You can imagine them trying to build this way back in the early 1900s. Pretty isolated area.
Crews needed 36 years to complete the East to West Railway on New Zealand's South Island. It took 8 years to bore the 16 tunnels and build the 4 major viaducts around the Waimakariri Gorge. Construction of the viaducts required workers to build one pier at a time, placing steel girders as each pair of piers was completed.
So this is the staircase viaduct.
We're on it right now?
Yep.
Rising 73 meters from the riverbed, the staircase viaduct is the tallest of its kind on the South Island. In 2017, it was nearly destroyed by wildfires.
See the new boards?
Yes.
The helicopters were told to drop all the water onto the viaducts.
The Midland Line runs through remote brushlands, which are prone to wildfires during the summer. The 2017 blaze damaged wood bridges, windbreaks, and signal systems along the rail as aircraft battled flames across 300 hectares.
Airplanes, helicopters, hundreds of fire crew, all trying to keep it under control. But this was extensive. This closed us for 6 weeks, disrupted 17,000 passengers.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a real biggie.
Wildfires are a hazard to this rail system, which does so much more than carry sightseers. The Transalpine is only one train among many that service the South Island's coal, forestry, and dairy industries.
All the trains in the South Island were completely cancelled. First time in the history of the rail that all trains were cancelled for that month.
Once summer passes, wildfires are no longer a threat. But as winter thaws to spring, locomotive engineers must be ready for rivers to overflow.
On the river here, it's very quiet today, but in a matter of hours it can rear up and go bank to bank, and you run the dangers of washing out the track.
In mid-2017, fierce rainstorms caused South Island rivers to rise to destructive levels. Flooding closed a busy rail line south of Christchurch and severely damaged a train bridge over the Opihi River.
Just this past weekend, we've had state of emergency in Christchurch, and some of the suburbs that border the rivers have suffered some quite bad flooding.
To contend with New Zealand's unpredictable weather, KiwiRail puts its mighty locomotives through frequent and thorough inspections.
Well, these are a V12 configuration, diesel electric, turbocharged. So these are probably the most powerful engines that we run on this line, built for the coal route. They're pretty reliable.
At Middleton Yard in Christchurch, engineers and mechanics work 7 days a week to keep the locomotive fleet running. It's essential these machines stay in top condition so they can safely handle the difficult terrain.
Right now, filling the sand, so when they go out in wet conditions, they got traction, they can, the wheels can get momentum on the rail.
KiwiRail's locomotives are equipped with 2 sandboxes at the front and another 2 at the rear. Air is drawn in from the locomotive's compressor to a valve that forces sand down to a nozzle which sits above the wheels. The sand then sprays out directly onto the slippery rails.
It sprays sand under the wheels of whichever direction it's travelling, and what that does is the weight of the loco crushes the sand and provides a significant amount of tractive effort. At the moment, what I'm doing is I'm adjusting the height of the sanding nozzles. It has to be set at the right height, otherwise it does very little. Beautiful.
Hey, 03 approaching Coralin, operating instruction to Arthur's Pass, no crossings.
We're now climbing up to Arthur's Pass, the highest stop on the line.
That side of the valley doesn't get a lot of sun, so it's permanently frosty. You get ice on the rails, so it gets quite slippery. You've just got to put sands down manually to stop the wheels from spinning.
The Transalpine pulls into Arthur's Pass as crews prepare to enter the Otira Tunnel.
Bankers, are you on your way yet, mate?
Yeah, coming in now, Willie.
The tunnel itself is 8.5 kilometres long. It journeys right under the Southern Alps. We're descending over 300 metres down to the tunnel. It's classed a dangerous place. 3, 2, 1 more, mate. Stop it there, thanks.
Train manager Willie Grant attaches backup engines to the Transalpine. The extra power is a safety measure in case something goes wrong in the tunnel.
If anything comes to grief up that way, whether it be a fire or a derailment, we don't want the passengers in there for longer than necessary. So we want to pull the train out of the tunnel in the worst case scenario. Better to be safe than sorry.
Now that the new locomotives are linked up to the train, we're about to head into the Otira Tunnel. And at 8.5 kilometers, it's actually one of the longest railway tunnels on Earth.
In 1907, workers began hacking through the Southern Alps with hand tools and dynamite to bore a tunnel that connects the east and west railways.
It took approximately 11 years to build and 5 years before construction was complete and we could run trains through there. It was certainly some feat of engineering.
As we approach the tunnel, the biggest issue the locomotive engineers must now deal with isn't mechanical. It's the air they breathe.
All crews carry a gas monitor that checks for oxygen levels and carbon monoxide and several other dangerous gases that might be encountered in tunnels.
Diesel locomotives emit fumes like nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide. In contained spaces like tunnels, they can build up to dangerous levels.
They are fatal in high concentrations. Oh, they'll kill you.
I'm nearing the end of a fantastic train trip across New Zealand's South Island as we head into the Otira Tunnel. I feel like I'm going on a spooky midway ride, but for the rail crew, traveling through the Otira Tunnel is anything but fun.
You can imagine with a passenger train, we could have 300 or 400 souls on board, and our job is to get them safely from one side to the other.
Additional locomotives are hooked up to the train to help pull the Transalpine out of the tunnel quickly if the fumes build up to toxic levels. To avoid disaster, the Otira Tunnel is equipped with a powerful two-line ventilation system. As the train moves forward, 3 huge 2-meter-wide fans draw fresh air in from outside. Once the train exits the tunnel, another 3 fans start up. The fans pull the diesel fumes out of the tunnel with the force of a 900-kilometer-per-hour wind, nearly 8 times as strong as a hurricane.
Because of 2 diesel electrics at the front, there's a lot of gases coming down over top of the train. The train's stretched out because of going uphill, so we get a few gaps. The train's very well sealed except for small gaps. So we're looking pretty good there. No sulfur dioxide, a little bit of nitrous, but not at any trouble.
After nearly 20 minutes in darkness, we emerge on the west side of the Southern Alps to make a brief but essential stop.
We've reached the township of Otira. We no longer require those extra locomotives, so just uncouple them. We'll carry on the rest of our journey. You're all off and clear there, Nick.
Now we're off to the rainforest and our final destination on the wild west coast. As we venture past thick forest, Dion learns that the rail signals have lost power along this stretch of the line.
Guard driver 803 receiving.
Yeah, Roger, over.
Yeah, we'll have another stop.
Wild west coast, we have a lot of issues with the signalling over here, especially with lightning strikes, weather conditions. He's now called our train control in Wellington.
Train control, time 0812 hours, over.
Hey Helen, Gary's got signalling suspended on the Midland line. It's probably a third of the route for the Transalpine is affected today.
A major storm swept the area just hours before our train came through.
In this case, the power's gone out and the controller then has got to manage the movement of trains, make sure we don't get 2 trains in the same place at the same time.
Proceed from the 19634 signal to tow reflect.
Understood, yep, on my way.
Under instruction from train control, the Transalpine can resume its journey, though it's now 35 minutes behind schedule.
Is it a lot to juggle?
It can be, yeah, definitely. There's one of me and up to 400 passengers that all want to know what's going on.
Right.
But it's a challenge, and I like that, it's good.
As the train pulls into Moana, power returns and the automatic signaling switches back on.
Probably about 35 minutes now. If we were delayed longer than this, people could miss their connection to the south and to the north.
With the shores of Lake Brunner at our backs, we've covered 195 kilometers and are counting down to our final destination of Greymouth.
We've got about 30 more minutes into the journey. We start to get back into civilization. few small towns. We'll follow the Grey River for where Greymouth gets its name.
This has been a real dream for you guys to do this.
Absolutely. But to see it from a train is what it's about.
Yeah.
You can't do it by car.
No.
After 5 hours, the Transalpine reaches the Wild West Coast. We're now moments away from arriving at our final stop, the port city of Greymouth.
It's been amazing to see the incredible technology and hard work that it takes to run these trains. They go over earthquake zones, past active volcanoes, and right through mountains and hazardous terrain. A railway that defies the odds with two of the most spectacular train journeys on Earth.